My husband canceled my seat at the family's Christmas dinner and kept the deposit I paid. What he didn't know was that the restaurant they'd chosen, down to the private dining room, the valet, the wine list, belonged to me. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel if stories about finding your voice and setting boundaries speak to you. It's free and it helps us reach more people who need to hear that quiet doesn't mean powerless. My name is Jennifer, and for 15 years I've been the woman people smile past. I'm the one who helps with details, the one who writes checks quietly, who makes holidays look effortless. That's the thing about seamless experiences. If you do your job right, everyone forgets you were there at all. It was December 18th, a gray Chicago morning, when my desk phone lit up with an unknown extension. "Good morning, Mrs. Hale?" A warm, careful voice. "This is Marisol from Cedar and Clove. I'm the private dining coordinator for your Christmas reservation. I'm calling to confirm some changes." I clicked the speaker on and let the room breathe. Out beyond the glass, Michigan Avenue shimmered with frost. In here, the radiator hissed like an impatient cat. "What kind of changes?" I asked, even though a cold little knot had already formed beneath my ribs. "Well," Marisol said, professionalism straining at the edges, "we received a call late last night from Caleb Hale. He identified himself as your husband, requesting that your invitation be removed from the guest list. He also asked that the $18,000 deposit you placed remain on file, with menu and wine selections unchanged." I stared at the thin stack of winter reports on my desk, the kind of documents people wave off as paperwork. They were actually the capillaries of a body I'd nurtured for a decade. Leases, vendor contracts, staffing models, 12-month pro formas, maintenance schedules, supply agreements. To some, they are busy work. To me, they are a language. "Removed," I repeated, tasting the word. "And the deposit remains?" "Yes, ma'am." A beat. It's an unusual request. We don't typically encounter a situation where the primary financial contact is not expected to attend. Primary financial contact. I almost laughed. That was one way to say the person without whom your holiday won't happen. I pictured Caleb's face, pleasant, linear, the way it always softened when his mother, Elaine, fussed over him at the table and cut his roast the way he liked. I pictured Owen, his younger brother, letting the conversation flow around him like warm gravy, never catching on that choices have prices. I pictured Lila, Owen's fiancée, all tooth-white gratitude and deft little deflections whenever money or logistics came up. "Let Jennifer handle it. She's amazing with details." "Thank you for telling me directly, Marisol," I said, steady. "Could you send me an email summarizing the request, date, time, the name and number that called you?" "Of course." Relief loosened her voice. "Mrs. Hale, if I may, our team flagged this as irregular. We wouldn't proceed without your approval." "Noted," I said. "Hold any changes until you hear from me." When the line went silent, the office noise returned. The soft thud of a delivery cart in the corridor, the faraway lift of a siren, the faint click of my assistant Ray typing outside my door. The quiet roared. I pressed my fingers to my temples and counted to 5. It would be easy here to tell you I cried, that I crumpled, that the betrayal hollowed me out. But the truth is, my first reaction was clinical. I have trained myself to split pain from action. One box to feel later. One box to open now. My phone buzzed again, personal this time. "Caleb, stop making this dramatic. You're not joining Christmas dinner. The deposit was a gift. We'll talk when you've calmed down." Every word landed with the clean, surgical arrogance of a man who has never been told no. Dramatic. Gift. Calm down. What a tidy way to sandblast a woman's reality off the facts. Facts. I had booked the private room at Cedar and Clove on November 2nd, after Elaine's group text. "So excited to host at a nice place this year. We deserve it after everything." The family wanted the long table, the candles, the sommelier tasting, the pianist in the corner playing carols no one listens to until a certain note needles memory. I asked for anonymity on the invoice because that's what I always do. That's the other thing about seamless experiences. When you underwrite them, it feels righteous to leave your name at the door. Another fact. Cedar and Clove is one of the flagship properties in a restaurant group called Northlight Dining. Ask Caleb about Northlight, and he'll tell you it's the trendy place with the copper bar. Ask me and I'll tell you. Northlight is a latticework, a patient braid of acquisitions across 5 years. It's wholesale contracts with regional farms and bakeries. It's the chair supplier who owes me a favor because I saved his business during the lockdown winter. It's the silent partner no one remembers until the ceiling leaks. And someone has to know which plumber will answer on Christmas Eve. It's mine. I didn't learn to hold an empire in silence for the aesthetics of mystery. I learned it because, in this family, visibility invites diminishment. The first time I tried to explain a build-out budget at Thanksgiving, Elaine patted my wrist. Numbers are so dull at the table, sweetie. The second time I tried to talk about renegotiating a lease, Owen said, God, Jen, can we not make this about money? The third time I stopped trying. I built Northlight like snow builds a drift. A million small flakes no one notices until it blocks your door. Ray knocked once and slipped in, an envelope in her hand and concern tucked carefully behind her eyes. I heard your tone, she said, and that was all. She doesn't smother. That's why she's here. Print Marisol's email for the file, I said. And flag Cedar and Clove's master services agreement. I want clause references on deposits and unilateral guest list changes. On it. When she left, I opened Caleb's text again and read it until the edges blurred. Then I placed my phone face down on the desk and let memory spool out to last Sunday, when the scaffolding for this particular cruelty went up. We were at brunch at Elaine's, the post-church ritual she polishes like silverware. The whole room smelled like orange zest and clean linen. Elaine passed around place cards for Christmas. Just making the table feel special, she sang. Jennifer was missing from the stack. I caught it, smiled, said nothing. Elaine noticed me noticing and filled my glass quickly. You know how crowded those private rooms get, she said, not looking at me. It's better to keep it cozy. Owen nodded, grateful a decision had been made in the air he breathes. Lila performed diplomacy. We'll FaceTime you, she chirped, pinning cheer over calculation like a bow on a box already empty. After brunch, Caleb kissed my forehead in the hallway like a benediction. It's just simpler without you, he said, conspirator soft. You know how you get when mom's around. I'm protecting you. Protecting me. It is a fascinating alchemy, the way a man can rename a bruise kindness. My desk phone rang a second time. I let it hum through 3 bells before I answered. Jennifer Hale. Mrs. Hale, this is Reed, general manager at Cedar and Clove. A lower register, the kind of voice that walked across marble floors and told storms where to sit. I'm calling because our coordinator flagged last night's request, and I agree it violates 2 policies. 1. The event contact cannot be changed without written consent of the signee. 2. Removal of the signee from a guest list triggers an automatic pause on services pending verification. Thank you, Reed, I said. Please hold the line. I opened the shared drive, pulled up the master agreement I wrote, and scrolled to the clause I could cite in my sleep. Language has saved my life more times than love. Clause 7.2, I read. No alteration to primary contact, guest composition, or payment obligations shall be executed without affirmative written assent of the primary signee. Violations shall result in immediate suspension of performance at management's discretion. Reed exhaled. I suspected as much. To proceed, I'll need your explicit approval. You have my explicit directive, I said. Do not implement any change communicated by Caleb Hale or his relatives. If they attempt to circumvent this, refer them to me and note time, date, and request. A pause. Mrs. Hale, off the record, are you okay? There it was, the simple human thing. It almost undid me more than Caleb's message. I will be, I said. Right now I'm working. We ended the call. The room returned. The radiator hissed again as if to say, now what? Now what indeed? People think revenge is a switch you throw. It isn't. Revenge is policy. It is protocol. It is knowing exactly which sentence in a contract becomes a scalpel when someone tries to edit your existence. My phone throbbed again, this time Elaine. I didn't answer. The voicemail came through syrup over brick. Jennifer, darling, We're all just trying to keep Christmas peaceful. You do get emotional, and you do make things complicated. Let's not ruin the season." I set the phone down as if it were hot. Out beyond the glass, a couple shuffled along, bundled, heads bowed against the lake wind. Across the street, Cedar and Clove's copper awning winked. On paper, I own 82% of Northlight Dining through a holding company most people would mistake for a shipping firm. In practice, I own the feeling a room has when everyone's food lands at the table at exactly the same time, and not one fork scrapes for lack of sauce. I own quiet, choreographed care. And for the first time in a long time, I felt the shape of a different kind of care forming in my hands. Ray slid a file folder onto my desk. Email printed. Contracts tabbed. Also, Cedar and Clove's pianist, Armin, called to confirm the set list. He said someone named Elaine asked him to skip anything you like. Of course she did. Even melodies were being curated to erase me. "Thank you," I said. "Please draft a response to read confirming my instructions. CC Legal. And flag Northlight's executive hotline for the holiday. Tell Sonia to expect elevated call volume from one client group this week." Copy. Ray hesitated then. "Do you want me to hold your afternoon with the contractor walkthrough? Or do you want to keep it?" "We keep everything," I said. "We just add one more thing." I opened Caleb's message again, not because I needed to see it, but because I needed to decide what kind of woman I was going to be next. The kind who swallows to keep the room comfortable, or the kind who notices the room is hers and rearranges the furniture. My phone lit a final time before lunch. "Lila." I let it ring. Then I listened. "Hi Jennifer," she sang, the edges too bright. "Just wanted to say thank you again for the deposit. It means the world. And I hope you're not taking the guest list thing personally. You know how you get around holidays. We really want this year to be calm. See you. We'll call you. Mary." The message cut off when her voice snagged on the lie. When I put the phone down, there were exactly 3 things left to do. 1. Put everything on record. 2. Stop mistaking silence for grace. And 3. Decide when I wanted the truth to arrive. On the front end, deferential, the way they preferred. Or on Christmas night, plated and steaming, revelatory as a dish no one ordered but everyone will eat because it is the only thing left on the table. My desk line rang again. Not Marisol. Not Reed. A new name flashed. Dorian, District Operations for Cedar and Clove. Someone who never calls unless the ground is about to shift. I smiled, and this time it reached my eyes. "Dorian," I said, answering on the first ring. "It's Jennifer. Let's talk about ownership." They thought canceling my invitation erased me. What they didn't realize was that every glass of wine, every roasted pheasant, every candlelit table for Christmas night, flowed through contracts I wrote and companies I own. I have a habit. Whenever betrayal hits, I build diagrams. Not doodles, diagrams. Flowcharts, arrows, who reports to whom, where the wires cross. Betrayal is messy until you lay it out in ink. Then the mess becomes a map. That morning, after Caleb's text and Elaine's voicemail, I opened a fresh page in my leather notebook. Title: Christmas Dinner, Hale Family. I drew a box, Cedar and Clove, December 25th. From it I pulled branches: venue, catering, wine list, entertainment, valet. Each one connected to contracts with a name at the end. Each name connected to me. I own Cedar and Clove through Northlight Dining, a company so layered in holding structures even lawyers blink twice. The catering? Amber Table, acquired last spring when they nearly collapsed under supply chain costs. The wine? Harvest Cellars, where I bought controlling interest after the founder's messy divorce forced a liquidation. Valet. Park and Prime, folded into Northlight 2 years ago. They thought they were just eating dinner. I was feeding them an empire. The phone on my desk buzzed again. Ray, my assistant, her voice cool and unhurried. "Jennifer, you've got Claudine from Amber Table Holding. She says she got conflicting instructions about Christmas service." "Put her through." A click then. "Mrs. Hale? This is Claudine. Well, your husband called yesterday. Asked that we redirect all correspondence to his mother, Elaine. But the invoices are in your name. And frankly, it's odd to be told to ignore the signee." Odd. That word again. Vendors don't like odd. Odd as breach of contract lawsuits and Yelp reviews and lost licenses. You'll continue dealing directly with me, Claudine, I said. No changes authorized without my written consent. Send me a record of Caleb's call, date, time, and his exact request. Of course. Honestly, we were uneasy. It didn't sound right. Your instinct is correct. When I ended the call, I turned to the window. Down below, Michigan Avenue sparkled with garlands and red ribbons. The city was dressing itself for warmth while my own family stripped me of place. It wasn't about one dinner. It was about the story they had always told about me. Jennifer makes things nice, but Jennifer doesn't matter. Well, if they wanted a quiet Christmas without me, they would get silence all right. So silent the dining room they'd reserved would echo. By midday the dominoes were falling. Harvest Cellars emailed. Mrs. Hale, we received instructions to substitute the wine pairings without your approval. We cannot proceed until clarified. Park in Prime Valley left a voicemail. Your husband said to reroute our invoices. Could you confirm? Even Armin, the pianist, texted. Strange request from Elaine today. She asked me to drop your favorite piece from the set list. I wanted to check with you directly. Every contact looped back to me. Every attempted erasure left a footprint. The web was tightening, not around me, but around them. That afternoon, Ray stepped into my office with 2 lattes and a folder. She placed both gently on my desk. Legal reviewed the master contracts. Clause 9.4 allows for immediate suspension of services if misrepresentation occurs. You could pull the plug right now. I traced a finger along the folder's edge. The power was intoxicating, but timing mattered. Revenge is not about the first blow, it's about the right one. Not yet, I said. I want them to build the fantasy a little longer. Let them picture the candles, the toasts, the laughter. The crash lands harder when it interrupts a dream. Ray studied me with quiet approval. So you'll wait until Christmas? Not wait, I corrected. Prepare. Evening fell early, as it always does in December. I stayed late in the office, the only light glowing from my corner windows, high above the city. I spread the contracts out across the mahogany desk like tarot cards. Each clause, each signature was a prophecy. They thought I was a line item. I was the ledger. The truth whispered through the paper. They cannot cut you out of what you built. I stacked the contracts neatly, slid them into a leather binder, and locked it in my drawer. Christmas night, my family would sit down expecting to celebrate without me. And I would be there, not as a forgotten guest, but as the ghost in every glass, the architect of every flame, the owner of the table itself. And when the time was right, I'd make sure they knew it. When the vendors started calling me one by one, I thought Caleb was acting alone. I was wrong. This wasn't just my husband's betrayal. It was an orchestrated family decision to erase me while keeping everything I gave. The third call came from Diane, coordinator at Harvest Cellars. She sounded apologetic, but also alarmed. Mrs. Hale, I need to clarify something. Yesterday we received instructions from Elaine Hale, asking us to reroute invoices to her personal email. She said you'd agreed to step back and let her handle the wine order. But the contract is in your name. Before we proceed, I have to ask directly, did you approve this? My pen froze above the page. Elaine. Not just Caleb. His mother, too. No, I said crisp. Any such instruction is invalid. Forward me her request for my records. Yes, ma'am. Diane's voice softened. To be candid, in my 15 years of event management, I've never seen something like this. Excluding the financial sponsor is highly irregular. There it was again. Highly irregular. Vendors used it as code for ethically wrong. I ended the call and leaned back, eyes on the city lights. A truth was crystallizing, colder than the December wind outside. This wasn't miscommunication. It was strategy. Elaine, with her perfect pearls and her condescending smile. Owen, with his soft-spoken helplessness, letting others carry every burden. Lila, with her doe-eyed gratitude that always curdled into entitlement. They hadn't just accepted Caleb's plan. They had built it with him. My phone buzzed again, this time a text from Caleb. Stop interfering. Everyone agrees this is for the best. Christmas should be peaceful. You're overreacting. Everyone agrees. The words burned. My exclusion wasn't a lapse in judgment. It was a vote. By evening, the scope of the conspiracy widened. Park and Prime Valet reported that Owen himself had called, insisting new guest names be added in place of mine. Armin the pianist forwarded a message from Lila. Please adjust the set list. No need to play Oh Holy Night. Jennifer gets emotional during it. And then the cruelest, a voicemail from Elaine Saccharin Sweet. Darling, we thought it might be better if you rested this year. You work so hard, and frankly the holidays bring out your emotions. Let's keep things calm for Owen and Lila's first Christmas as an engaged couple. Your contribution will never be forgotten. My contribution? As though $18,000 were a wrapped present under the tree. As though I'd offered it freely, expecting nothing but invisibility in return. I sat in the dim office, binder of contracts heavy in my lap, and let the reality settle. They had met, multiple times I realized. They had discussed me, deliberated, debated, and concluded I was not worth a chair at the table. Not worth presents, only worth payment. The betrayal cut deeper because it wasn't impulsive. It was methodical. Family meetings had been held about how to erase me. And all of them, Caleb, Elaine, Owen, even Lila, had signed their names to my humiliation in the privacy of whispered conversations. The worst part? Not one of them called to ask if I was hurt. Not one wondered if it felt wrong. Their silence was consent. I flipped open my binder, tracing each clause again with a steady finger. Legal leverage, operational control, ownership records. Proof. If they wanted to treat me as an afterthought, I would remind them. No, I would show them that the dinner, the wine, the valet, the music, all of it answered to me. Ray peeked into my office, her face lit by the glow of the city skyline. Still here? Yes. She hesitated. You've been circling those contracts for hours. What's the plan? I closed the binder, the leather snapping shut like a gavel. The plan, I said, is to let them hang their ornaments and string their lights. To let them believe they've won. And then on Christmas night, when the table is set and the glasses poured. I met Ray's eyes, steady and cold. We'll pull the tablecloth out from under them. All of it. That night, in my silent apartment, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. Memories flickered. Years of pouring myself into a family that never poured back, of smiling while being overlooked, of writing checks and receiving pats on the hand instead of respect. For 15 years, I'd believed that patience was virtue. But now I saw it clearly. Patience had only taught them to take. This Christmas would be the last time. They had voted me out of Christmas, erasing my name while pocketing my money. But they forgot one thing. Every candle, every course, every valet ticket belonged to me. And when power is yours, retaliation doesn't need noise. It needs signatures. I arrived at the office before dawn on December 20th. The city was still half asleep, streetlights glowing against the frost. I poured my own coffee, black and sharp, and laid the contracts across the table like weapons. Each one had my name on it. Not Caleb's, not Elaine's, not Owen's. Mine. Ray was already there, hair tied back, a scarf looped twice around her neck. She set down a folder. Legals prepared cease and terminate templates for Cedar and Clove, Amber Table, Harvest Cellars, and Park and Prime. All you need is your signature. The pens gleamed in their holder, waiting. Once these go out, she continued, there's no undoing it. The Christmas dinner collapses. That's the point, I said. I signed the first document, Cedar and Clove. My name curved across the line, steady as steel. Termination effective immediately. Second, Amber Table Catering. Suspended pending misrepresentation investigation. Third, Harvest Cellars Wines. Authorization revoked. Fourth, Park and Prime Valet. Contract void. The signatures came like breaths. 1, 2, 3, 4. Each stroke of ink erased their Christmas. Send them, I told Ray. She didn't hesitate. With a click of her keyboard, the notices went out. Dozens of inboxes pinged. The web shuddered, then began to unravel. By noon, the calls began. Mrs. Hale, this is Reed from Cedar and Clove. We've received your termination notice. Do you want us to inform the client party directly, or will you handle communication? I'll handle it, I said. Understood. We'll close the reservation immediately. At 12:43, Claudine from Amber Table. Mrs. Hale, your husband called again, panicked. He says there's been a mistake. Should we continue preparing or terminate as instructed and keep a record of his call? Yes, ma'am. At 1:07, Armin the pianist. Jennifer, they're begging me to still play Christmas Eve. What should I do? Play where I send you, I said. Not there. By 2 p.m., the Hale family's carefully built fantasy was ash in their hands. I kept my phone on the desk, watching as texts poured in from Caleb. Jennifer, what did you do? The restaurant says everything's canceled. Fix this. Now. Then another. You're being vindictive. It's just dinner. You're ruining Christmas for everyone. And finally, the one that revealed everything. If you don't fix this, they'll know you've always been the problem. I read the words slowly, letting them cut the way they were meant to. Always the problem. That was the story they'd been writing about me for years. Too emotional. Too ambitious. Too much. I whispered to the empty room. If I'm the problem, then I'm the only one who can solve it. That night, Ray brought me updates from each vendor. All services officially canceled. Refunds withheld under breach clauses. Rooms, meals, staff gone. There's no going back now. I looked at the skyline, glowing red and green for the holidays. Good. Let them feel it. Do you want to tell them yet? Ray asked. I shook my head. No. Not until Christmas night. Let them sit in the illusion until the last possible moment. That's when truth hits hardest. December 21st through 24th. The silence was delicious. Elaine stopped calling. Owen didn't text. Lila posted filtered photos of engagement rings and Christmas ornaments, pretending nothing was wrong. Caleb came home late each night, jaw tight, ignoring me as though ignoring me might reverse the unraveling. But I knew better. Each hour was a countdown. Each day a fuse. On Christmas morning, I woke early, dressed in a black suit with crimson silk beneath, and walked into my office. The binder of contracts lay open, a ledger of consequences. I touched the pages lightly, almost tenderly. By now, the family would be dressing, smoothing coats, checking watches, rehearsing toasts. They'd arrive at Cedar and Clove expecting music, wine, and candlelight. Instead, they'd find empty tables, locked doors, confused staff repeating the same line. Per instruction of ownership, your event has been canceled. And just when their panic peaked, when the silence at the table was louder than any carol, I would walk in. Not as the erased guest. Not as the forgotten wife. But as the woman who owned the table they tried to take away. They thought I'd been erased from Christmas dinner. But when the music stopped, the lights dimmed, and every vendor vanished, they finally learned whose signature had fed them all along. December 25th, 6 p.m. The Hale family arrived at Cedar and Clove in coats lined with fur and voices buzzing with expectation. Elaine led the procession like a queen returning to her throne, pearls gleaming at her throat. Owen trailed behind with Lila on his arm, her laughter a little too high, a little too rehearsed. Caleb walked in last, stiff in the shoulders, pretending control he no longer held. The maitre d', as instructed, greeted them politely. Good evening, Mr. Hale. Unfortunately, there seems to be a complication with your reservation. A complication? Elaine's voice iced the air. Impossible. We booked the private room weeks ago. Yes, ma'am, but as of this morning, the event was canceled by ownership. The dining room has been released. We have no staff scheduled, no menu prepared. The silence that followed was brittle, like glass about to crack. I wasn't there yet. I let them squirm. Inside, waiters in crisp uniforms milled with deliberate confusion. I'm sorry, Mrs. Hale, but your wine order has been voided. Your valet passes are invalid. The pianist? Released from contract. Elaine sputtered, her cheeks blotching red. This is outrageous. Do you know who we are? The maitre d' tilted his head. Yes, ma'am. And do you know who owns Cedar and Clove? At 6:15 I arrived. Not in a gown or glittering jewelry, but in a tailored black suit and scarlet blouse. The kind of outfit that said boardroom, not ballroom. Ray walked at my side, carrying a leather folder. The family turned in unison when the doors opened. Relief flared on Caleb's face, then collapsed into dread. Elaine froze mid-rant. Lila's smile faltered. Jennifer, Elaine said, trying sweetness. Oh, thank God you're here. There's been a terrible mistake. Our reservation. No mistake, I interrupted, my heels striking the marble floor like a gavel. Your reservation was cancelled. By me. I stepped closer, opening the folder so they could see the contracts, stamped and signed. Every glass of wine, every plated entree, every valet ticket, you tried to strip me from them. But they were never yours. They were mine. Owen blinked. You? But Northlight Dining is me, I finished. Every company you've dealt with, every vendor you begged for mercy these last few days, Amber Table, Harvest Cellars, Park and Prime, they all answer to me. While you were plotting how to exclude me from Christmas, you built your celebration on my empire. Lila's lips parted, no words coming. Elaine clutched her pearls, gasping softly. Caleb's face twisted into something between fury and fear. You can't be serious, he hissed. This is vindictive. You've ruined everything. No, Caleb, I said calm. You ruined everything when you decided your wife was good enough to pay, but not good enough to sit at your table. The dining room around us lay bare. No silverware, no candles, no steaming plates. Only emptiness. The perfect mirror of what they had tried to leave me with. You thought invisibility was kindness. I continued, my voice cutting through the cold air. But invisibility is theft. You stole my presents, my name, and then had the audacity to keep my money. Tonight, you'll eat the consequences instead of a Christmas feast. Elaine opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. No sound came. Owen's shoulders slumped as if the weight of it finally hit him. Lila's carefully arranged poise crumbled. But Caleb still fought. You're humiliating us. In front of everyone. In front of everyone? I let out a short laugh. No, Caleb. I didn't need an audience. You did that yourselves the moment you chose deceit over decency. This isn't humiliation. It's revelation. I turned to the maitre d'. Please escort them out. Their event is cancelled. Yes, Mrs. Hale. The staff moved quietly, firmly. Chairs scraped, coats were handed back. One by one, they were ushered toward the door, faces pale, voices raised in protests that went unanswered. I stayed where I was, at the head of the empty table, Ray at my side. The family filed past, each glance at me a mixture of shock, anger, and shame. At the door, Caleb stopped, jaw tight. You think this makes you powerful? You've just proved you're petty. That's all. I stepped close enough that only he could hear. No, Caleb. I proved that I don't need your table, because the table has always been mine. He flinched, then followed his family out into the freezing night. For a moment, silence filled the restaurant. The staff looked to me, waiting. I nodded once. Thank you, everyone. Go home. Enjoy your Christmas with people who value you. They smiled, relief in their eyes, and left one by one. At last, the dining room was empty. I walked to the head of the long oak table, laid a single hand on its surface, and let myself breathe. This was not the end. There would be conversations, reckonings, consequences yet to come. But for tonight, the message was clear. They had tried to write me out of Christmas. Instead, I had erased their Christmas entirely. They thought the worst was Christmas night. But I wasn't done. I wanted them to see clearly, directly, without excuses, who I was and what I owned. And for the first time in 15 years, the Hale family would sit at my table on my terms. December 28th, I summoned them. Not to Cedar and Clove this time, but to Northlight Dining headquarters, 31 floors above Michigan Avenue. Invitations went out like subpoenas, formal and cold. To Elaine Hale, Caleb Hale, Owen Hale, Lila Simmons. Subject: Northlight meeting, mandatory attendance. Location: Executive Boardroom, 31st floor. Time 10 a.m., December 28th. The message was signed not Jennifer Hale but Jennifer Langford. The name on every contract, every deed, every holding company. The name they had forgotten I still carried. The boardroom gleamed that morning. Floor-to-ceiling glass looking out over the frozen city. A table carved from a single slab of walnut. Chairs of deep leather that smelled like power itself. Awards lined the wall. Best Regional Hospitality Group, Fastest Growing Dining Brand, Innovator of the Year. I waited at the head of the table in a navy suit, Ray at my right hand with a stack of files. At 9:58, the elevator doors opened. Elaine stepped out first, stiff-backed, pearls gleaming even in the winter light. Caleb followed, jaw clenched, eyes darting everywhere but me. Owen trailed in pale and quiet, while Lila kept her hand looped through his arm, her smile brittle. They stopped short when they saw the room. "This isn't necessary," Elaine began, her tone rehearsed. "We can resolve family matters privately." "This isn't a family matter," I said evenly. "It's business. And business requires accountability." They sat. Silence stretched. Finally Caleb spoke, voice dripping with indignation. "You humiliated us on Christmas. You destroyed our dinner." "No," I corrected. "You destroyed it the moment you decided my presence was dispensable, while my money was not. I simply showed you the cost of that decision." Elaine tried next, soft-voiced, maternal. "Jennifer, darling, you overreacted. We just wanted peace. You know how emotional you get at holidays. We were trying to protect you." I slid a document across the table. Clause 9.4 of every Northlight contract. Any misrepresentation of client authorization voids agreements immediately. Every one of you participated in misrepresentation. Rerouting invoices, canceling music, removing my name. Don't call it protection. Call it fraud. Elaine's face paled. Lila dropped her gaze. Then Owen spoke, low and halting. "Jennifer, I didn't. I just thought. Mom said it was better this way." "For who, Owen?" I asked. "Better for me to write the checks while you cut my name off the place cards? Better for me to build the empire while you pretend the table set itself?" His eyes filled with shame. He said nothing more. Caleb slammed his palm on the table. "Enough. You think this makes you powerful? You're tearing this family apart for ego. Money doesn't give you the right to humiliate us." I leaned forward, voice soft but sharp as glass. "You mistake me, Caleb. This isn't about money. This is about respect. For 15 years, you introduced me as your wife who dabbled in catering. You let your family pat my hand while I built a regional empire. And when you saw the chance, you tried to erase me entirely. That wasn't just disrespect. That was war." His mouth opened, but no words came. I tapped the folder Ray had placed before me. Inside are copies of the contracts, ownership records, and the termination notices I filed. Every vendor you leaned on answers to me. And as of last week, every one of them knows who I am. My anonymity is over. The entire Chicago hospitality sector now understands what you never did. That Jennifer Langford is the reason their lights stay on." Elaine's breath caught. Lila's eyes widened. Even Caleb blinked, stunned. Owen finally broke the silence. "Jennifer, I'm sorry. I should have spoken up. I should have said it was wrong." I studied him. There was sincerity in his eyes. Perhaps too late, but sincerity nonetheless. "Your apology is noted," I said. "But apologies don't erase what was done." I stood, letting the height of the room carry my words. "Here's what happens next. Caleb, our marriage is over. Papers are being drawn. You will leave with nothing you didn't bring in. Elaine, Owen, Lila, you are no longer welcome in my life. You wanted me invisible. Now you will live without me entirely. No checks. No favors. No access." Elaine gasped. "Jennifer, you can't mean." "I do," I cut in. "You made your choice on Christmas. This is mine." The room fell silent. Outside the glass, the city glittered under a pale winter sun, indifferent to their shock. Finally, I turned to Ray. "Show them out." She opened the door, her calm presence the final punctuation. One by one, they filed out, faces drained of color, the weight of consequences finally pressing down. Caleb lingered a moment at the threshold, his voice low and bitter. "You'll regret this." I met his eyes, steady. "The only thing I regret is waiting 15 years to stop being silent." He left. I sat back down at the head of the table. Alone now but not lonely. For the first time, I felt the full shape of my power. Not hidden, not diminished, but owned. They had tried to make me disappear at Christmas. Instead, I had made them disappear from my life. And the silence they left behind was the sweetest carol I'd ever heard.